Hey Taylor, how's it going there, man?
Good. How are you doing? Is it okay that I have these headphones on and stuff?
Dude, dashing as always. Come on.
Cool. Okay.
But
It's like the
before,
light in here is crazy.
blinding me with science. Really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Congrats on your new single, St. Augustine at Night. When did you actually make it compared to putting it out?
We recorded it in like May, June through there of last year. And we thought at the time, like, you know what, we're in the middle of a tour. We're always in the middle of a tour. Let's let Dawes fans get a little bit of a break. Let's start 2020 with being Mandy's band, my wife. She was going to go on a long tour. And then let's put our record out in, like, say, October. And that way we'll have given fans a breather from, like, asking them to buy tickets to Dawes shows. And then everybody took that same breather, so it kind of didn't work out that way. If we knew this would have happened, I would have rather just put out the record in February. But whatever, I'm really happy it's finally coming around.
Beautiful track. Was it one of many things recorded, or are you the kind of person that does like two or three songs at a time?
You mean like that song?
Yeah, in general. Like some people these days go, oh, I'm done with albums. It's all about a single when I'm motivated. And then other people go, well, I'm going to make an album and I'm going to do it in two or three song spells at a time. I have no idea your process, what it's like, other than this is going to be the seventh record.
Right. My process has typically been, here's 12 songs, let's find the right 10. Or here's 14 songs, let's find the right 12. You know, that kind of thing. That always presents itself. It always makes it clear which ones are working and which ones aren't. And I might be an old fart at this point about this, but like I can only think in terms of albums because that's how I digest my favorite material. Like I think that if, like the example that I've used in the past, I think if Dear Doctor by the Rolling Stones came out as a single, I might be a little bit like, I don't know, this doesn't really have like all of the gravitas of a Stones song. But when it's like framed around Sympathy for the Devil and Street Fighting Man on that same record, it lends them more power and itself gets better because there's this arc. It's not the Stones albums aren't 10 singles. It would be a little bit insane. They know how to like give you something that lives and breathes. And if in artists that are releasing music as singles, some of them I love, like some of those kinds of artists I love, but I find myself not willing to listen to 10 songs in a row because I'm just overwhelmed. So I've always thought in ways of like, how do songs lean on each other?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was trying to think, what can I ask Taylor that people don't usually ask him before? So I reached out to our mutual friend, Mike Viola.
I was just texting with him about you right before this. It's awesome.
Okay, word got out. So I said, Mike, what's Taylor really like? Because I've only seen you live opening up for ELO at the Garden. He said, Taylor's the most literate musician that I know, the biggest reader. I'm not saying that your lyrics are like not, overly full of references per se, but I wouldn't have picked that up about you. It doesn't seem to me like when I hear your music, that you're doing it like through a character's kind of perspective like Mike is, or am I totally wrong about that?
I'm definitely not doing it through a character's perspective. One thing I think, like one way that I feel like what I read is relevant to the way I write is the fact that I've never been able to get into poetry very well. Just a big dummy when it comes to that. Like when I was at the right ages, it's like, all right, Rimbaud, Verlaine, Baudelaire, T.S. Eliot, like I really tried.
Yeah.
And I think it was the time in my life or whatever. I just kept coming up dry and kept coming up being like, I don't feel anything. I don't know anything. And so I kept going back to novels and just narrative. And so the things that fire me up are like if you recommend to me like a 1,200 page novel, some people be like, that's too much. That's my favorite thing. It takes me a long time. I'm a slow reader, but it's my favorite thing. So like I really get into that's why I feel like my songs aren't triple coated. I love those writers. I mean, I was just listening to the new Bright Eyes today. Mm-hmm. Conor Oberst has that quality where these songs like that, he finished that record a while ago, like January, February, and yet every song feels like it's about coronavirus because he's that kind of impressionistic writer.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I don't have that. I think I'm more like, if there's a spectrum somewhere in the universe between Conor Oberst and John Prine, I'm probably a little bit further over next to John.
Yeah.
Just I like it when my songs, like my song feels done when the intended emotion is what you're intuiting. I've never been great at like please just interpret this, and it's just not how it comes out of me, even though I wish it was.
Yeah, there's some people who are excellent songwriters. Somebody like, say, Billy Joel, where he's saying exactly what he means. There's not a lot of hidden meaning. And I take a song like yours. The first Dawes song that really hooked me was Time Spent in Los Angeles. And it's such a meaningful song. It's simultaneously optimistic and pessimistic. But I don't think you're hiding behind anything in that. I don't think that that's a character. That's.
Oh yeah, that's and more or less always the case. I mean, I especially around then, like I've had this working theory, and this might offend people in their early 20s, but like at least for me as a writer and seemingly and like an immature future adult, like I was in a place where I didn't know what I didn't know like what was decent in terms of how much to talk about myself. You know, I would make like an 11-song record and just it's all about me because I assume that's what everyone does, and it's not.
Right.
And I look at in this one respect, I almost look at how you write a record is sort of like how you conduct yourself at a conversation at dinner. Like to a certain degree, it's like, here's what I'm going through, but also, how are you? Or also, let me share this anecdote about someone else I know and love, you know? And like, I think I was in those early records of mine, I was very much the guy at the table, was like, can we talk about my issues some more? And so Time Spent in Los Angeles and a lot of those songs are very much like, here is what I'm going through. And if there's any like tactlessness about this, it is not occurring to me. And as time goes on as a writer, I think the ones that you see sticking around, I look at Elvis Costello as maybe one of my favorite examples of this. Early Elvis stuff feels very personal and very like close to his experiences. And when you get to LPs 8, 9, and 10 and 50, he's very good at occupying other people's experiences. It almost feels like a rite of passage. It almost feels like, okay, you've made it this far, and if you want to continue doing this, you can't keep putting yourself up on the surgeon's table. You have to start finding another way to breathe life into a song. And so songs like St. Augustine at Night are me trying to like, you know, push those walls further out and say like, I'm not and not for anybody else other than myself, but I need to be a writer that can talk about like just a human's experience rather than my own.
Speaking of Mike Viola, when you really nail him down a little bit and you find out what was the music that got him started. He really started on Ozzy and Black Sabbath and hard rock. And I'm assuming you know Danny Harrison based on the fact that you both were in that Jeff Lynne opening act world.
We've crossed paths, not then, but we crossed paths years and years before. I'm not sure if he remembers me or not, but it was, you know, he's a very lovely guy.
Well, when I interviewed him 2 years ago and I asked about what got him started on guitar, it wasn't the Beatles, it was Iron Maiden. Were you ever a metal guy?
I know you were. I know I know that you're like an encyclopedia of metal. Yeah. But I want to be. It's funny, my initial steps into like what I fell in love with. Like, of course, my dad was an R&B singer, so of course, you know, there was tons of Otis and Temptations and that sort of thing, and then the Beatles and the Stones. But it was really just like a diet for kids. Like, it's like you need to know this. This is a foundational stuff. And then when it came time for me to go out on my own and like Danny, like find the way he found Iron Maiden. For me, it was, for better or for worse, it was like Third Eye Blind and Matchbox 20 and just like whatever was on the rack at Blockbuster Video in like 1996. And for me, it was like, this is me falling in love with music. And with metal, there was never like Zeppelin was the closest thing when I was just learning how to play guitar in a serious way, and wanting to learn riffs and understand how they could build songs off of that. But I don't. Do they count? Are they a metal band? No.
Zeppelin?
Yeah.
Oh man, that. I know Jimmy Page hates it when you tell him that he's a metal artist, but every stupid VH1 countdown ever that says the best metal bands ever will be like Zeppelin 1 or 2 behind
Right.
Black Sabbath. But
And isn't it true that that's like that they invented the language in a lot of ways? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's debatable, but like just what they were doing.
yeah, I mean, the term heavy metal, oh, this is going to sound so nerdy. I mean, heavy metal comes from that Steppenwolf song from Easy Rider, the line heavy metal thunder. And wait, was there also a Hendrix line about heavy metal? Whatever it is, isn't that kind of the thing that like the people who invented punk rock hate being called punk?
I think any generation. I think like, Kurt Cobain hated the term grunge.
Yeah.
I get a little wincy when people say Laurel Canyon. Not that I'm not putting myself in the same sentence as Kurt Cobain on purpose. I shouldn't do that. But
I'll do that for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like nobody. I don't think anybody likes terminology because that's why you create a body of work. And the reality is, it doesn't. Especially with artists that are more like nuanced. I mean, like Zeppelin's a good example, but even Tom Petty or Bruce Springsteen, it's like what they do is singular. We can all agree on that for those of us that are familiar with their music. But if someone landing on planet Earth for the first time says like, what does Bruce Springsteen sound like? You're not going to get it right. It doesn't matter what you say. Like you could say words like blue collar, everyman, rock and roll, anthemic, like, and it's always going to come up short. And the same goes for like genre terms, unless you like just keep cutting up that pie and saying like 50 different things. And eventually it's like, whatever recipe you've created for these artists.
I'm surprised by that answer. I thought I was going to get my first album was Kiss, this album by Kiss, because your sense of melody, I mean, the Kiss guys admit that Big Star was an influence on them. You never know where it comes from.
Yeah. That's, I mean, it's funny. Like, I don't want to give too much away, but Mike and I have actually like flirted with the idea of writing some hard rock songs together and figuring out some sort of like place for that.
I do hope that happens, and being super respectful of your time, because you are in the midst of what they call a press day. They are going to ask you some of the same questions I've asked about six more times probably.
Yeah.
So we know that there is a new album in the pipeline. We know that things are going very well. You've got this great new single, but is there anything I didn't cover that's upcoming for you?
Not really. I mean, things are so weird right now that we just don't know what the future holds. We look forward to touring again, but it's when you really like stop and think about that, it's pretty scary what that could mean. Like, no one knows what venues are going to be open, and they're going to be so rattled that the ones that are open aren't going to be able to like pay the way they used to. So bands are going to have to reconfigure how they tour. It's just so trippy to try to wrap our heads around what the future of rock and roll music for a living looks like. But we're staying positive. I mean, with all this extra time, I was able to like finish writing another record. So hopefully we'll be able to go record that soon.
And Mandy's album is excellent. I expected nothing less. You played a hand in that. Mike did as well. So hopefully see you both on the road in the near future. My usual closer is any last words for the kids. You kind of answered that, but anything else that we should be taking into account of the future generations that listen to Taylor?
Just learn on acoustic guitar before you switch to electric.
You're totally correct on that one. Otherwise, the parents and the noise and all.
Yeah, and also it's like those baseball players that swing 3 bats before they walk into the actual box and just swing 1. Like acoustic guitar makes it feel like you're running in sand, and then you pick up the electric and like, wow, this is a little easier. So it's a way to learn
before you get the calluses. Well, Taylor, can't thank you enough for your time here. Looking forward to the whole album and seeing you live in New York and all that. But keep up the greatness there, man.
Thank you so much.
Paltrocast.